I'm the National Chair of the Australia-India Business Council, and it's my great pleasure today to moderate this Agribusiness webinar on food processing, biosecurity, and the cold chain logistics. Before I start today's proceedings, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we're gathered on today in every part of our nation here in Australia. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture, and the hopes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples across our nation here in Australia. Today is a really important day for our Agribusiness chapter as we sort of move ahead and consolidate the very exciting trade and investment emerging opportunities between India and Australia. Today, we have over 113 registrations with a visibility of 100 business communities and 5,000 people before the event and post the event. And we're also very fortunate today to have our sponsors as well today from Blue Science Technologies. So today, from the AIBC point of view, we are really consolidating what we were founded to do in 1986. We were founded to foster the bilateral relations between Australia and India. The Australia-India Business Council is the only premier non-profit organization with a mission to promote trade dialogue between India and Australia through nurturing and maintaining close relationships in both Australia and India with federal and state government agencies, the diplomatic representation, state bodies, and industry bodies. So today, as with everything in the AIBC, we're very outcome focused. So the purpose of today's webinar is to get back to basics information in relation to biosecurity, food processing, packaging, and food wastage. This webinar will discuss and recognize the biosecurity limitations in both countries that affect food processing and packaging. This will also include food wastage awareness in both our countries through discussions with the Department of Agriculture here in Australia and our counterparts in India. So in terms of outcomes, it is really about back to business, back to basics information. And on that note, I think it would be a very good opportunity to kick off the session by asking our chair of the Agribusiness chapter, Con Levisianis, to give us a welcome and overview of this webinar from his very important perspective, and his profile is there on your screen. So over to you, Con.
Thank you, Jim. Before I welcome all of our honoured speakers, I would like to acknowledge, just like you, the traditional custodian of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and community. I pay my respects to them and their cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to all our speakers and viewers today to the second AIBC Agribusiness chapter webinar on food processing, biosecurity, packaging and cold chain logistics. To ensure that we keep to the tight schedule, each speaker and their bio slide will be introduced one at a time by Jim. Our sponsor for this webinar is Blue Science Technologies. Len Smales, co-founder, and Tony Smith, managing director, will be speakers and present on the role of technologies in agri-products and delivering solutions in food wastage. As most of you know, our inaugural webinar, Moving Forward with Bilateral Opportunities in Agribusiness, on 30 July 2020, was launched by the Honourable David Littleproud, MP Minister for Agriculture, Drought and Emergency Management. Minister Littleproud highlighted the opportunities now available to all businesses in Australia and India to forge closer ties and recognise the enormous size of the market in India and the availability of the Australian agribusiness expertise to contribute to the farming sector in India. As a newsflash, 2 days ago, the Modi government announced that it is bringing together its Indo-Pacific and Asian policies under a single unit, with the Ministry of External Affairs creating a new vertical, which includes a new Oceania Territorial Division with Australia at its centre. The Oceania division will include Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Islands. This was felt to be necessary, with Australia playing a larger role in India's outreach to this region, acknowledging that this is within Australia's sphere of influence. This is now a major destination for Indian diplomatic interest and development assistance. Keep in touch with us at the Australia-India Business Council for further updates, as this is a significant positive shift in the Australia-India relationship. Both Australia and India need to provide education on production methods to producers to meet importing country requirements. Our first speaker, Peter Creaser from the Department of Agriculture, will address this plus other biosecurity issues. The Honourable David Littleproud and Senator Honourable Simon Birmingham are well aware of the AIBC's concerns about both Australia and India, opening their doors to clearer communication about the biosecurity standards set by each government. Our second speaker, Cameron Colbatch, from the Plastics, Packaging and Food Waste section of the Department of Agriculture, will address food wastage strategies, as will our sponsors, Blue Science Technologies, through our third and fourth speakers, Len Smiles and Tony Smith. Our fifth and sixth special guest speakers are from India. Unupam Kaushik, President of National Collateral Management and Services, will address us on international trading of agricultural commodities, and Kamlesh Thakor, CEO of Radbim Global, is a global chain expert and will address us on supply chain in agribusiness. For your information, some key statistics on India are, by 2035, India is projected to be the third largest economy in the world. By 2025, 1/5 of the world's working age population will be Indian. By 2030, 51% of Indian households will be middle income or higher, up from 24% in 2018, contributing to a quadrupling of consumer spending by 2030. The value of agri-food consumption in India is predicted to double between 2019 and 2050. Invest India recently organised a food processing webinar which clearly identified specific opportunities for Australian companies in various states of India and the facilitation process for the commercial partnerships. Cooperation and collaboration between our two nations will allow businesses on both sides to take advantage of the impending opportunities. This is a true B2B landscape. We should not forget the opportunity to make in India. It is an opportunity for Australian businesses that are clean and green, with knowledge and skills, to take their IP to India, to find their long-term joint venture partner and establish a central business that can distribute not only in India, but to that region of the world. The time to meet engagement is now, particularly with the Australian government's implementation of the India Economic Strategy. Australia has a competitive advantage and shows in its clean and green status, knowledge, skills and infrastructure, counter-seasonality and proximity to India. So take advantage of it and trust in its willingness to form a permanent long-term relationship. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Fakon, for that very comprehensive introduction. And can I call on Peter Creaser, who is the Assistant Secretary, Department of Agriculture, Biosecurity Plant Division, and his very impressive profile is over there. And over to you, Peter, to brief us on where we're at in the biosecurity and bilateral programs. You there, Peter? You just need to unmute. Just while we're waiting for Peter Con, is there anything you'd like to add in terms of this biosecurity area and its importance to Australia?
Jim, I am here now.
Good, excellent, Peter. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Jim, and apologies for that. As much as I was pushing the mute or unmute button, it wasn't willing to participate. So look, I'll get straight into it, Jim, because I do appreciate the time limitations here. First of all, I just want to give a quick overview of the meaning of the title of my presentation today. I work in the Department of Agriculture and Water and Environment, as you know, and have responsibility for identifying priorities for Australia's plant industries, both horticulture and grain, to negotiate technical market access with countries around the world. By technical market access, I mean meeting the technical conditions that a trading partner may seek to impose. These technical conditions are often biosecurity conditions, but they may also be chemical residue levels or other food safety matters. The other important part of entering a negotiation is that it's very normal these days that the country we are negotiating with is also seeking a technical market access win into Australia. And certainly that's the case with India, between India and Australia. So when we are negotiating with trading partners, we are really negotiating for two-way trade outcomes. We are seeking to create a win-win situation. And again, there's a very genuine approach between Australia and India in this context. As a relatively small country compared to many of the ones we're seeking market access to, for example, China, India, US, Japan, and Korea, the potential market gain for our trading partners may not be large. However, to get market access into Australia, for some countries, it is useful to have the status of having negotiated successful market access into Australia. It is actually used with negotiations with other countries. Australia is very fortunate in that there are many pests and diseases that we do not have that other countries do have. And so we are very thorough in our assessment of the risk posed by plant commodities into Australia. Sometimes we're criticised for the time it takes to complete these risk assessments, but we do have a detailed process that we step through and that we explain to our trading partners. However, I do have to say that once we have completed, we are able to very quickly open up the trade. So whilst it may take us some time to complete the science, the decision process from there on is quite quick. This is a little bit different with some other countries where it does require ministerial sign-off before trade can begin. In negotiating technical market access, we have a full annual program of bilateral meetings with trading partners around the world to progress both ours and their market access interests. Our annual bilateral program ranges from high-level minister-to-minister meetings, formal annual high-level government-to-government officials meetings, and detailed technical meetings. There may be several meetings over the year at different levels over the course of what could be a 2 to 3 year process. As part of my role, I'm the lead negotiator with India on technical market access. My counterpart in India, Dr. Chandra, and I are the co-chairs of the Australia-India Sanitary and Phytosanitary Plant Technical Working Group, quite a mouthful. Australia's technical market access negotiations with India have been very fruitful for both countries in recent times. Slide 1, which you're seeing up there, just demonstrates some of those, market access successes for both sides of our countries. As a net exporter of agriculture produce, agriculture trade is an absolute priority for Australia. Every year, Aussie producers send more than 2/3 of their goods overseas, and these agriculture exports are of significant value and help drive our economy. India is a significant market for Australian grains, pulses and nuts, and the potential for horticulture is increasingly being recognised by our fruit and vegetable industries. The growth potential for Australian exports remains in commodities that India needs, especially during periods where there are shortfalls in production. And we've seen that certainly with pulses such as chickpeas and lentils, and as well horticulture and other oil seeds. Many industries are looking to diversify their markets, and India's growing food demand, as well as increasing appetite for premium products, does present some good opportunities for Australian exports. While Australian exporters are keen to send product to India, the uncertainty created by high and fluctuating tariff quotas, as well as other non-tariff measures, can be challenging and can impede the confidence in exporting to India. So coming back to biosecurity, why all the fuss over biosecurity? Biosecurity has played a really critical role in reducing the risk and shaping Australia to be free from the world's most severe pests and diseases. An example that many of you may have recently heard is Capra beetle. If we could go to slide 2, please. So Capra beetle, you would have seen in the media quite recently, we've had some detections at the border, and it's proven to be quite challenging in recent times. Those detections have been much higher than we've had in the past. Capra beetle is number 2 worst pests on our plant pest risk list and is very damaging for storage grains. Our biosecurity system is recognised as world-class with some of the strictest biosecurity rules of any country, and its rigour has greatly benefited Australia and continues to provide Australian exporters with significant competitive advantage in securing access to overseas markets. If we could go to slide 3, please. Australia uses a range of sophisticated technologies and approaches, including research and shared international resources and intelligence, to minimise the impact of potential introduction and spread of disease. Surveillance and monitoring is critical to this. Many other countries have simply given up the fight and bear the considerable cost of managing the impacts of many pests and diseases. Consequently, it is both a significant economic asset as well as a key safeguard to Australia's unique environment and way of life. It is also a risk management system. It does not try to and cannot cost effectively reduce risks to zero. So rather, the system aims to mitigate the highest biosecurity risks with the minimum necessary impact on the movement of people and goods across our border. As with all systems of its type, it's hard to put a value on the counterfactual, the cost to Australia of not having it in place. In fact, in the face of the incursions and outbreaks we may have to manage, and again, Capra beetle is a really good example. However, Australia is a trading nation with some 70% of our agriculture products exported. We are dependent on trade and we benefit from a global rule-based free trade system. We recognise the importance of facilitating two-way trade, and we don't want to be unnecessarily restricted to our trading partners, whilst also having to protect the very favourable biosecurity status that Australia has. Very quickly, a critical process in facilitating technical market access is the completion of import risk analysis. These risk analyses are undertaken over, as I mentioned before, over a 2 to 3 year period. And during that period, we do a very close assessment of the risk posed by a particular commodity coming into Australia. Similarly, our trading partners will do the same for Australia. Key to Australia's import risk assessment process is the strong bilateral relationships with our trading partners to facilitate a timely and robust discussions needed to agree to a set of scientifically sound import conditions. India provides a great example where recent progress on our respective market access requests can be directly attributed to this strong relationship. Just quickly coming back to the title of the webinar, I want to touch very quickly on the reference to food processing, packaging and cold chain logistics. We've had some great success with India recently around collaboration on in-transit cold treatment, where Australia's provided capacity building for India to be able to utilise and also to be able to monitor in-transit cold treated goods coming into the country. In return, India has actually opened up trade for our horticulture products using in-transit cold treatment. Similarly, in the grain space, there's a proposed project going forward to work very closely with India to foster connection and collaboration between Indian and Australian grain growers, storage and logistics experts. The purpose of this is to improve and modernise grain handling and logistics in India and to support Indian food security and economic growth. It will also provide India partners with Australia as its preferred agriculture supplier of expertise, services and technology and goods. Certainly in agriculture trade to India, including through an agreement for Australian supply of pulses to complement Indian production. An activity program will focus on areas of mutual interest on grains management and logistics, including commercial initiative and development extension of collaborations. Very quickly, I just want to make passing reference to food processing and packaging. Processed foods provides another opportunity to avoid some of the harsher, biosecurity requirements. Where food is processed, it may actually eliminate biosecurity risk. And so it's a really worthwhile consideration for exporters to take account of food processing. And secondly, packaging can play a really important role in also securing products and avoiding potential contamination of biosecurity concerns. In conclusion, I just want to quickly say that Australia looks forward to continued and close engagement with India, including through future cooperation and genuine partnership activities. This will help build our respective trade and our relationship, and that will be a benefit of both our farmers and our countries. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Peter, for that very comprehensive presentation. And just listeners may be aware that the Government of India had earlier reduced the import duty on lentils from 30% to 10% till 31st of August 2020. Now the reduction of this duty on lentils has been extended till 31st of October 2020. And that's quite encouraging news in the context of what Peter has just outlined, and a good entree into a presentation from Cameron Colbatch, who is the Director of Plastics, Packaging and Food Waste Division with the Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment. And his CV is there in front of you. So I'll hand over to Cameron to take us through the food wastage strategies.
Many thanks, Chair. So thank you all, and thank you for inviting me to present here at the Australia-India Business Council. To give you a quick overview of my presentation, today what I'll talk about is the issue of food waste, why it's important, what the Australian government is doing about it, and importantly, what are the opportunities for agribusiness both in Australia and India. Before I kick off though, I just want to clarify what is food waste, because often when we think of food waste, we might think of the food that's left over on our plate at the dinner table. I just want to clarify up front that what we're talking about here is food that is lost throughout the whole supply chain from farm to fork. Just the next slide, please. So food waste, I just want to frame the problem here. So first of all, it's not just a social problem. Obviously, it doesn't reflect well on societies where you have food being wasted, but at the same time, people going without food. That's a reason enough as it is to act. But there are also other reasons. If food waste was a country, it would be the third highest emitter of carbon emissions. The land area that we use to grow food that is ultimately wasted, that land area is the equivalent of China or Antarctica. Globally, we lose approximately $1 trillion due to food waste, and the water use that is used to produce food that is wasted is really, really significant. You can talk about it in terms of those the scale of the pyramids that are on the slide, but to bring it home, for every McDonald's hamburger that goes in the bin, that's the equivalent of about a 90-minute shower of water that went into making that hamburger. Next slide, please. So just to think about, or to have a look at, where does food waste occur throughout the supply chain? It does differ depending on where you are in the world. In Australia and North America, which is that first column, food waste predominantly occurs at the consumption stage by households. And so in Australia, there's a real need for us to act at that, to influence consumers and households. Having said that, there is also very strong arguments to act in the earlier parts of the supply chain. Even though they are smaller, they are significant. Conversely, in South Asia, a lot of the food waste occurs at the production and handling and storage stages. So different problems faced by our respective countries, but overall, I think there's still a lot to be learned from each other on action here. Next slide, please. So I did mention that the financial cost of food waste is significant. In Australia, it represents about $20 billion. And if you break that down by household, it's approximately $3,000 per household, which is a scary figure for householders to consider. But again, a lot of that is food waste that they don't see themselves. If there's one thing that I would like you to get from this presentation, is it's the return on investment when acting on food waste. It is significant. Looking at a sample size of, I think it's approximately 1,200 projects from around the world in 17 different countries, the median return on investment is $14 for every $1 invested in food waste reduction. So it is significant. Businesses don't need to be acting on food waste purely for altruistic reasons. It is affecting their bottom line. Some of the obvious costs are things like measuring waste, training staff, improving inventory management, changing packaging. And another key one that's not listed there is cold food supply chain management. Next slide, please. So in terms of what is Australia doing about it, we've come from a standing start over the last few years, and now we're really acting on this. So in 2017, that was sort of where things kicked off with a national food waste strategy. And then last year, the Australian government set a target to halve Australia's food waste by 2030. We've got a roadmap for reducing that. That was finalised early this year. And the exciting body of work that's happening next is the Voluntary Commitment Program. We expect to have some announcements about that in coming months. And the next slide I'll talk about that in the next slide. So what is a voluntary commitment program? It's a proven way internationally. So Australia's not setting new ground here. We are replicating something that has already been rolled out in the UK and the EU. But it's a proven way of bringing industry together. And when I say that, I mean from farm to fork, to reduce food waste and increase profits for participating businesses. How it works is you have an independent convening organisation that brings all the industry players together. And then they invite industry members, private businesses, to participate. They sign up, they pay a small annual membership fee, and then they're obligated to quantify their food waste and set their own individual target. And that can be as ambitious as they like. Then they work within with the convening independent organisation. They work within their supply chain to reduce food waste, and where that's not possible, donate surplus food to food relief programs. They also explore potentials to create new values, new market opportunities from products derived from food waste streams. And so overall, you're following the waste management hierarchy. First of all, try to avoid food waste, right down to, if you have food waste, then deal with it responsibly by passing on to food relief programs. Now, what do the organisations, the businesses, get in return for their membership fee and the effort? That's simple. They get $1 return that is much greater than their investment. Some examples, just to conclude, potatoes. For some reason, grade Class A potatoes were deemed to have a circumference of 45 millimetres in supermarkets. But that size was set a long time ago. No one knew where it came from. And so they tried reducing that acceptable size down from 45 millimetres down to 43 millimetres. No one noticed. Consumers didn't notice that change in 2 millimetres. But the farmer did notice, because their crop utilisation went up by 5%. And that was an extra $2,000 per hectare of income. And they continued to reduce the size of the potato until consumers did notice. And the end result was that crop utilisation increased by 15% per hectare. Now, that's significant for industries who are operating at the margins of increasing their profits. Now, by having these kind of opportunities are difficult for farmers or single businesses to achieve by themselves, but through the Voluntary Commitment Program, they're working as part of a whole supply chain to a common goal. They're mainstreaming best practices within their industry. They have better cold food supply chains. There's valorisation. So, for example, banana flour, where green bananas otherwise get ploughed back into the ground, they can use that banana flour and sell that as an alternative product. In summary, it's creating farm-to-fork solutions to both reduce food waste and increase profitability. Our hope is that the learnings from the Voluntary Commitment Program can be used by both Australian businesses and India. But overall, this is an opportunity, a global opportunity. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for that, Cameron. That was a very excellent overview of the food wastage strategies and most informative. Can I now take the opportunity to introduce our next presenters, who are also our sponsors for today's event, and they'll be doing their presentation together. Len Smells, who is the co-founder of Blue Science Technology, and Tony Smith, who is the managing director of Blue Science Technologies. And Tony will take you through the role of technologies in agri products, and Len will take you through delivering solutions in food wastage. So over to you, Tony and Len.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to present our company and technologies to the Council. What is Blue Science Technologies? Blue Science Technologies develops and distributes EPA, FDA, HPA and TGA registered hospital-grade, non-toxic hypochlorous acid disinfectants, organic herbicides, air surface sterilisation, and antibacterial packaging. Blue Science also manufactures, powerful disinfectants and organic herbicides from the salt, water, and electricity. The option for assembly is we do it now in Australia, is also now available in India for these products. The disinfectant product is called Blue Light, which is 100% natural and organic. That's right, thank you. And is hundreds of times more powerful than similar chemical products. Installation of Blue Science Solutions ECA device provides food growers, processors, transport operators an opportunity to preserve fresh food without chemicals at an affordable price. For example, you'll be able to save food starting at less than 10 rupees per litre. Blue Science is the only HOCl device manufacturer that has obtained an EPA registration for its disinfectant recognised to kill 99.999% of germs. This means that Blue Science Solutions can offer flexible options others cannot. Install on-site production systems directly in food processing, packaging and transportation facilities, and work with regulatory agencies on your behalf to mitigate risk, cost and paperwork. Supply our EPA registered Blue Light hospital grade sanitizer direct at prices lower than competitors for traditional suppliers of plant herbicides, disinfectants and cleaners. The next slide you'll see is pretty much what the microbes that the hypochlorous acid attacks and eliminates. And as you can see, we've had extensive EPA and FDA approvals, and now we have our TGA approvals, so you can see the long list of the products. As you can see, there's an ECA device. This is our bottling of our Blue Light solution. With the food that we're looking at putting our Blue Light on, we dial the pH level back to 60 parts per million, which means that the food is now non-toxic, edible, with a disinfectant solution on it. So this in turn will allow food to last 7 to 10 days longer. And this is now FDA approved and EPA as well. So in summary, Blue Light kills 99.999% of germs on contact. We can dial our disinfectants pH level up and down to certain circumstances in the agricultural side, whether we put it on to kill mold, moss, etc. on the trees, on plants, and we can then dial it to go on the food as well, and in transportation and in water. So we have a solution where we can have a machine on site that dials up and down to kill germs on all those products, including algae and water. So that's a brief summary on our Blue Light disinfectant. We can produce in large volumes by simply putting in more machines. Our basic machine can do 1900 litres a day of disinfectant by just using salt and water and electricity. We can do a hand sanitizer that has no alcohol, that has 250 parts per million and kills 99.9% of all germs as well. So the hypochlorous acid was used in World War I as a wound care treatment. Your body naturally produces it for your immune system. So now we've harnessed this technology through our ECA device. We've purified it, so now we can dial it up and down to go on these products. There's a picture of the ECAs. They're currently the different models we can do. So these are currently produced in Germany. We have now been manufacturing in Australia, and we can manufacture in India. This is a comparison study between the Blue Science ECAs and other products in the marketplace. this is the industry and applications where we can use our products. So as you can see, it can go right across the field from putting in schools, agriculture, to transportation, disinfectant, cleaners, sanitizers, just by using salt, water and electricity. Thank you very much. I'd like now to pass you on to the co-founder and chairman, Len Smells. Jeff, I'll hand it over to you. Hello.
Over to you. Look forward to it.
Hey, Jim. Thanks very much, Tony. Thank you all very much for coming to this webinar today. It's a very important subject. There's actually multiple subjects and all lead to the same, that we need to look at how we can protect the most important industry there is in the world, which is agriculture. Without agriculture, we simply do not eat and we cannot survive. In Australia, we are known for being down under and quite resilient, known around the world for our asset management, looking after our resources. Sometimes it's a vegetable born in Australia, or intellectual property that is born overseas. What we do at Food Science Technology is a whole of industry solution. So we look at from a farm to fork scenario and how we can benefit each different sector in that chain to deliver food to the table. One of the key areas that we recognise is manipulation of water, where we can take various known sciences and develop a system that would benefit the growth and enhancement of the plants or trees in the ground. This can be done in various ways. We have various different systems. One being, of course, the system produces hypochlorous acid. That has several benefits where it can eliminate bacteria and fungus on plants and trees that are in the ground. And once the produce is harvested, it can assist to wash down facilities where the food is processed and stored. It can be simply sprayed straight onto the produce. It's organic. And the main ingredients to create this product is water and salt through a dual electrolysis system. Very basic, but very effective. No need for chemicals, no need for production of chemicals. And given the ease of production, this system can be rolled out across any farm, anywhere in the world where there's access to water. Now, beyond actually the processing and storage, you can also wash down all the vehicles that transport the produce, and you can continue to apply this water-based solution to produce that's on shelves, in markets, in stores, where the produce is being held. We have seen results where our produce is lasting 7 to 10 days longer on the shelf, and at the same time, at the same time, the produce is non-toxic. So we have a non-chemical based solution that can benefit. That's one key area of utilising the water technology. Another technology we have is a nanoplasma. A nanoplasma machine known as air sterile, and it's used extensively around the world, especially in the cold storage operations. It's a machine that generates a UV plasma that will seek out and destroy all pathogens, bacteria, fungi, and VOCs in the air and on the surfaces. This can be used in food processing, food storage, food transportation, and of course display as well in stores. We've partnered with major supermarkets in the UK region, Tesco one of them, where they had a listeria outbreak. Simply by installing an air sterile machine, they can keep listeria under control. Another example is the Department of Agriculture in Ireland. We did a case study there with them where a machine was placed into the cold storage unit where a meat carcass was being held. It had a coliform unit count of 2,500, and by the time it arrived in Ireland from the UK, 2.5 days later, had a coliform unit count of just 70. So it arrived very well fresh a couple of days later in Ireland, and I'm very happy to see that meat on the plate in McDonald's. There's been various case studies there with that particular equipment air sterile, and around 12 or 24 volt, they can plug into a cold storage facility, into a reefer shipping container, into a refrigerated transport truck. One of the other benefits of having a particular device in a country with a refrigerated transport or storage is that it will eliminate bacteria and fungus on the food that's inside the container, the vehicle. So you may not actually require to have refrigerated transport. This could be a huge boon for countries like India, where a majority of the fleet transport doesn't have refrigeration. So you can have a dry refrigeration cycle based on having the air-style signs installed in the logistics supply chain. Another example would be nano packaging. We are talking a fair amount about nanotechnology today. We have a nano disinfectant composite that can be inserted to any material. It's non-toxic. What it does do is prevent bacteria or fungus forming within the packaging, keep it nice and sterile. In Korea, we managed to increase the shelf life of fresh milk by 10 days, simply by having the milk inside NDC plastic packaging. So these are a few examples of the science that's readily available from here in Australia, and that we can readily do a technology transfer in a strategic alliance partnership with other countries. And in this circumstance, we are looking at India today, what we do to help the agriculture industry. Beyond helping India, we also have aligned with a company known as Infinita Biotech Private Limited in Gujarat. This company developed an organic class of enzymes that works off cell wall lysis, and this hydrolyzes the eggs and larvae of beetles and other insects, so they have a chance to actually hatch into adult insects and reproduce and create havoc among crops. So this was certified by DSIR in Indian government organisation, and this product has been utilised in coffee plantation, potatoes, strawberries, pomegranate, many staples around the world. And this is Indian intellectual property that Blue Science Technology now distributes in Australia and other countries around the world. This is a great example of a viable trade arrangement between our two nations, where we have enzymes coming in from India to help us protect what we do here. And in return, we can send our machines that we manufacture here in Australia back to India to prevent food spoilage in India. So I have to not miss anything today, but if there's any questions, of course, we can answer them later on.
Thanks very much for that, Len, and Tony too, for that very excellent joint presentation. Can I just say also, as a former Director General of Primary Industries and Fisheries in Queensland, it is very, very encouraging to see the innovation of your company in terms of bringing blue science technologies and that connection to Gujarat and its really positive implications for biosecurity. This is really how we'd like to see the private sector work with government in Australia and India. So congratulations. I think that's a very good presentation. I'd like now to introduce our next speaker, who is Unapam Kuzik, who is the President of the National Collateral Management Services Limited. And he's going to talk to us about the international trading of agricultural commodities. And his profile is there on the screen for you. Very impressive profile. I'll hand over to you, Unapam.
Thank you, Jim. It has been an excellent experience of hearing all the practitioners who are contributing in their own way, either at an individual level or at the organization level. And thank you for the opportunity for sharing my experience and ideas on the international trade in agriculture commodities. So I would like to open my presentation or the narrative with one slightly contentious snippet of the numbers, that there has been time and again a kind of discomfort in the international agriculture commodities trading community about the policy changes in India on the duties or the non-tariff barriers or the quantity restrictions or whatever we have been hearing, specifically from the Indian-Australia channel, which is primarily comprising of the pulses, which is chickpea and lentils and almonds. So I would like to say here is that Indian agriculture system has been, the nature of the Indian agriculture production system was subsistence for initial 4 or 5 decades. And of late, Indian agriculture production system is changing gear from being subsistence to commerce. And India is gradually moving from managing shortages to managing surpluses. And in the wake, there will be policy turbulences because Indian government has to protect its farmers in view of the large direct domestic subsidies to the developed countries as compared to what Indian government is offering to its own farmers. I mean, today, if we look at the support that Indian farmers receive is less than $250 per farmer. And these are the WTO numbers. And if we compare the developed countries, the range of direct domestic subsidy to farmers ranging is from $5,000 to as high as $61,000 per farmer. So in the wake of massive subsidies provided to the farmers of the developed countries vis-a-vis Indian farmers, so far it was kind of protecting the Indian farmer using this kind of policy, which has certainly been disconcerting for a lot of international trade partners in agriculture space. But with the reforms that has recently happened, I must say that Australia should look at India not as a market for its products, but as a market for its knowledge, because Australia stands at the forefront of the productivity levels. And India has been, I would say that kind of in the bottom quartile of the productivity numbers on many commodities. But now the Indian agriculture has been thrown open for public participation, for private participation. The government is now trying to act as an enabler rather than being a, I would say, an interlocutor or an arbiter. It's now decided to play its role as an enabler only. And as things improve, direct access to the farming system, the farmers, the production systems happen, India would be looking for best-in-class production systems, either coming from Australia, which is at the forefront, or Israel, or Brazil, whoever has done excellent in the realms of improving the production numbers. I mean, just to look at the pulses, which is the biggest component between India and Australia, which is India. I mean, the global trade in pulses is around 3.2 million tons. And of which 66% is, if I take last 5 years numbers, around 50 to 66% is shared by India. Now, if Indian productivity numbers move from the current levels to, let's say, world average, India will be able to produce 2 million tons of additional surplus over and above what it is already requiring. And if it reaches the global best numbers, which is demonstrated either by Saskatchewan farmers or the farmers of Queensland, India can easily contribute to almost 50 to 20 million tons of global surplus. So my point is the opportunity for Australian agriculture ecosystem is to trade in knowledge and partner with all the emerging opportunities post reforms, where this is going to be I would say, a market for supplies rather than market for consumption. And if the focus remains only on the market for consumption, I think that partnership will meet its challenges due to various emerging factors, which is going to make India a very, I would say, a dominant force in next 5 to 10 years as private equity and private capital is flowing into production systems, farmer-produced organizations, farmer-produced companies, significant investments in the productivity systems like seeds or fertilizers or everything. So there's so many things which are happening, where I would say that Australia can be one of the most dependable, because we have a history of partnering with Australia in many things, where it can directly come and present and partner with these opportunities, where we can say that it's a together India-Australia presentation of the agriculture produce from India to the world. And India is very strategically located in terms of transit times and the neighboring geographies where it needs a significant amount of commodity imports. Just to give an example, I mean, today China is importing close to 120 to 130 million ton of agriculture produce, ranging from soybean or maize or cotton or whatever you call it, around 8-10 commodities put together, makes 130 million tons of agriculture produce. And despite of 3 to 4 decades of sustained development, even today China has to depend on agriculture imports to feed its large population. In my opinion, if the India's 191 million hectares of land, which can easily be, I mean, the gross crop area, which can easily be increased to 220 and 230, if we take learnings from the Australian production system of drip irrigation and many other world-class, I would say, the irrigation facilities, India-China can become a very safe channel of exchange of commodities, because 130 million ton can be grown next door to China in Indian farmland. So my sense is in rather than looking at the flow of commodities from one production system to another consumption system, India should be looked at as a production system of the future because it has one of the most blessed landmass. It has the abundance of surface water. It has abundance of rainfall, almost 90 centimeters annual rainfall. No country can boast of it on a year after year basis. And the investment in technology to harvest this rainwater, India needs close to around $250 billion of investment in irrigation. And Australia has got some wonderful rainwater management expertise, which can be marketed in India and can be used for building long-term partnerships. So the point here I'm trying to make is that any agriculture trading or any trading in agriculture commodities should be looked at from the holistic lens of equitability, sustainability, and fairness. So if we look at it, India is the right country to partner with Australia, and all the knowledge that Australia has developed over the last 5 to 6 decades in building the most modern agriculture systems. I think together both the countries can do wonders in this partnership. On the transit losses and other things, I'll reduce those issues because they're contained in the question session. My sense is that trading is going to emerge, that India, rather than remaining a taking country, it will become a giving country over the next 5 to 10 years in the wake of these reforms. Thank you very much, Jim, on this.
Thank you, Unapam, and thank you for that very comprehensive picture of international trading. If you do have questions, put them on Q&A. That is for our registrants. It is a very tight program, but we always try and answer those questions after the webinar if we can't do it during the webinar. It's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who's going to focus on the supply chain in agribusiness, and that's Kamlesh Thakur, who is, of course, the Chief Executive Officer of Radbin Global Chain Expert, and his profile is there on the screen for you. So over to you, Kamlesh.
Thanks, Jim. Good afternoon, everyone. Absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you so much, Australia-India Business Council, for giving me this opportunity. It has been absolutely a privilege to listen to all the eminent panelists. Food security, sustainable agriculture, and healthy nutrition are key to sustainable development of society and for long-lasting well-being of the human population. In addition to growing influence of technology relative to supply chain, when I think or converse on agriculture and food supply chain, biosecurity and cold chain gets foremost in my mind. Biosecurity as a concept has direct relevance to the sustainability of agriculture, food safety, and the protection of the environment. This does take center stage today, in my opinion, when we talk about agri and food supply chain in a holistic manner. Glad that this webinar has covered most of it, and so quite well. I said yesterday, the timing of this webinar is absolutely wonderful too. One, the COVID-19 brings in a lot more focus on the biosecurity than ever before, and also a lot more focus onto the resilience of supply chain. Two, in addition to several other initiatives by the Indian government, the farm bills legislations which have just been brought in help liberalizing farm sales and thereby augmenting growth in this sector. These emphasize the need for strengthening agri and food supply chain, cold chain market, and the need for developing it faster. True that this space is getting competitive with several new players emerging. Typically, when I talk about supply chain, there are three flows: product flows, information flows, and finance flows. I do add often risk and opportunities flows. And I believe Australia and India will have huge amount of opportunities in this space to collaborate, as we have huge amount of risk also in this space. Here in this webinar, I'm focusing more on product flow, which makes more sense. Product flow includes movement and storage of raw material, inventory, finished goods from the point of origin to the point of consumption, what we call farm to fork. management of upstream and downstream value-added flows. Upstream stages involve searching for and extracting of raw materials, and the downstream processes the material collected during the upstream stage into finished products and gets them to various channels, businesses, government, or private individuals, to the last consumption points. Cold chain supply logistics infrastructure is very key, important part of agri and food supply chain. India has moved from cold to cold chain. It all began with cold storage in India, moving forward to end-to-end cold chain logistics. Focus is shifting to end-to-end uninterrupted logistics solution and not just storage of cargo. This, I believe, is true for Australia as well, and I think we can have a lot of knowledge sharing. I think it has been explained in the by one of the panelists earlier as well. With agri and food, biomedical, pharmaceuticals are another key drivers of growth for temperature control supply chain. So I think holistically, if I look at cold chain, India is the emerging market for that. The government policies are also getting aligned to support and leverage this growth. In India, as I noticed over the last few years, consumer and farming behaviors are changing the landscape very rapidly, creating larger needs for cold chains. Consumer behavior have changed in the recent years with modern trade, with availability of processed and frozen vegetables, dairy, fruits and meats, etc. in India, which were not as much there 10 to 20 years ago. They all require temperature control supply chain from origin to the final customer. Farmers have been changing their behaviors too, moving towards fruits and vegetable cultivation for better yields and remunerative prices than risk and investment in the grain crops. Cold chain thus needs a lot more focus. I'm happy to highlight them. I'm happy to highlight here that state of the art of technology and equipment in cold storage is progressing very well in India, in processing units and all the way up to the consumption point and retail outlets. Digitalization technology is evolving as well with RFID to IoT. This space is moving from remote container management to creating food visibility on temperature control and safety while goods are under movement. For India, as also Australia, the food supply chain is complex, absolutely, and nationally distributed system with center and provinces, states contributing to their shares towards the growth and resilience of agri and food industries and their corresponding supply chain. In India, we suffer from fragmented supply chain, large share of unorganized players are still in the supply chain domain, which is absolutely putting us in terms of a lot of challenges towards commercial viability and also leading to wastages and price escalations. New farm legislation, I'm sure, is going to contribute in terms of fixing this to a larger extent. India, also we need to strengthen logistics network in cold supply chain, getting to domestic consumption as well as exports. A lot more challenges and opportunities there. Here we need to move faster in India, we need to move faster from informal to formalization of this sector. Again, happening at a very rapid pace, as Anupam also said. And again, the current farm legislations should be able to help there with much more of marketplace. Market needs more consolidation in India, as Indian retail sector is still being dominated by small-time traders, kirana shops. Processed food market is still evolving in India. Thus, a lot more attention is needed, both from government and the private sector. There are several limitations, but winning over the limitations, just I'm trying to share some of the key drivers, which is going to be changing the landscape of supply chain in India. Effective demand and supply planning, absolutely essential. Working on localizing the workforce. During the COVID, we have seen that there has been a lot of disruption in agri and food processing because laborers have migrated from their working places to the native places, and therefore there has been void there. So absolutely we need to localize the workforce, thereby make sure that there is no disruption. We need to decentralize manufacturing and warehousing. Absolutely. Warehousing and supply chain networks are playing a very important role in helping businesses move from centralized manufacturing to distributed assembly line formats of manufacturing. Over the years, modern warehousing and 3PL services providers have evolved to become trusted partners and drive the opportunities faster. A common example of course, we have seen in many industries. Developing regional hubs of effective cold chain, better transport network with dedicated food and horticulture chain. We need to develop a lot of regional hubs. Government is doing quite a bit in terms of trying to create logistics part, trying to create food and technology zones, and all of them are going to be helping quite a bit. We need to have dedicated food and horticulture trains, logistics, all of that. And I think a lot of emphasis is being given by the government in this area. We need to use technology far more. Business intelligence as their tool to any supply chain. Being one of the high promising sectors of Indian economy, I see a very bright future for this sector, therefore need for efficient and resilient supply chain all across. There has been very encouraging support from and investment from the government as well. A lot of incentives and encouragement for FDI too in the recent past. Cold supply chain market is developing and getting competitive too, with several new players emerging. Given the rapid momentum, I see huge opportunity for collaboration between the two great nations. We can work together, we can strengthen the agriculture in India and the process supply, food supply chain in India. I'm sure Australia, India, all the organizations together can get together and try and then build a thought towards that. And we have a lot of area for collaboration. Very short time we have in this webinar. I shall be looking forward to more focused and dedicated discussion in terms of taking this initiative forward. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you very much, Kamlesh, for all those comments and also for your focus on the supply chain. That's very, very important in the Australia-India business and investment trading relationship. We have a short time now left in terms of the interactive session. So let me kick it off by asking Kevin Raju, who is the AIBC National Partnerships Advisor. He has a question to ask to Cameron Colbatch. So over to you, Kevin.
Thank you, Jim. My question is to you, Cameron. COVID-19 is a window of opportunity to reset our consumption behavior and promote a more socially and environmentally sustainable food system. Today's environment makes it a great occasion to have and maintain open discussions within these platforms where we can join forces to build a strong and sustainable Australia-India food processing system to benefit even globally. In this context, what kind of partnership and collaboration do you envision to reach such common objectives?
Over to you, Cameron. Are you there? Okay, well, can I ask if another member of the panel would like to answer that question or have a go at it? Perhaps I might ask Con, does he have a comment on that?
Thank you, Jim.
Con? Yeah.
I think like it said there, the strong and sustainable food processing system, it is one of those significant issues that even in the western suburbs of Sydney, we are building up an environment of food processing that takes into account clean energy and clean food. So I can only see that the relationships with local councils, for example, in Australia, will become a significant part of the system to ensure that food processing can be taken from a small area, a small district in Australia to an environment in India.
Thanks very much for that, Con. And we have some other questions that we will get back to our registrants on as we're coming close to the end of this webinar. I'd like to ask now Vish, our chair of Make in India chapter for AIBC, to deliver a vote of thanks. Vish. Vish has his very impressive profile on the screen, and he's been a source of great energy in getting Make in India on the map here in Australia. Over to you, Vish.
Can you all hear me, please?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And this is a question to Mr. Len Smiles, the co-founder of Blue Sciences. And congratulations for bringing out excellent technologies through your company. What I would like to ask is, are these new technologies which are organically non-chemical based, which is protecting the food and extend shelf life by Blue Sciences, be made available to the food industry in India under the Make in India program, which the government is, it's beneficial both to Australia as well as to India.
Yes, Vish, because we were at 6:06, I was asking you to do the vote of thanks.
Okay.
But your question is very good, and we will add those questions to other questions that we have on notice. So if you'd like to deliver your vote of thanks for India, maybe I'll turn around the order a bit so that we maintain our momentum at 6:06. I did ask each of our participants to give me 3 words that would be the take-home message about this webinar. So and then after that, I will ask Vish to do the vote of thanks. So let me go on my participant list, and I'll ask Kamlesh, what are your 3 words that would describe this webinar for you? Just 3 words.
I think it's a wonderful webinar. We realize that we need to reform this sector quite a bit, in particular India and also Australia in collaboration. Second, I understand time is running very fast and we have wonderful lesson coming from COVID-19, unfortunately. So therefore we need to perform. And absolutely, as we move forward, we need to transform this industry together. I think there are 3 takeaways in my opinion.
Thank you very much. Now, if you can put that into 3 words, let me ask Cameron Colbatch. Is he there? Cameron?
Yes, I'm here now. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Just 3 words that's take home for you from this webinar.
Return on investment. Food waste isn't about just doing good things. Return on investment, there is an interest for this business here.
Excellent. Peter Krezer, your 3 words?
Thanks, Jim. Sorry, I'm going to say 4 words. Innovative approach.
4 words is fine. 4 words is fine.
Innovative approaches facilitate trade. And by innovations, I mean the technologies that we've heard today, but also different ways of thinking.
Okay, thank you for that. And could I ask Les Smales what his 3 words are? Len, are you there?
Yeah.
Yep. Got your 3 words?
Yes. Strategy, which is a strategic partnership between both countries. So strategy, of course, is very important moving forward. The sustainability is another one. We must look at being sustainable when we form these strategies for the long term. It's not always easy when you have innovation driving force behind the technology that we introduce as a society. And furthermore, innovation, of course, underpins everything that we do. If we are going to survive in the next so many years of population increase, we must maintain innovation.
Thank you for that. And is Tony Smith still there? He's got 3 words. Tony? All right. Yep. To solve a global problem. Okay. Excellent. Can I then ask Unapam Kuzik, your 3 words?
Equitable, inclusive, sustainable.
Very good. And Con, your 3 words?
I'll take knowledge from Anupam, innovation from Tony and Len, which equals opportunity.
Excellent. Vish, your 3 words?
It's collaboration, partnership, and moving forward.
And Kevin Raju, your 3 words?
Collaboration, innovation, and lesser food wastage. Thank you.
Excellent. And that, have I missed anyone out of our panelists? Very good. Can I then, as we're moving exactly on time at 6:09 p.m., can I then move on to Vish to deliver the vote of thanks? Vish, over to you.
Thank you, Jim. As you rightly said, first of all, this is very timely. And Jim, I want to thank you as the National Chair of the Australian Business Council guiding us. And this is, as you rightly said, it is back to business aspects, which we covered today in a broad spectrum. And I would like to thank Com being the main speaker for this and conducting the whole proceedings as the chair of the Agribusiness chapter of Australia-India Business Council. And as you highlighted the recent government of India shifting to Australia and promoting Australia as an important trading partner and in the partner as such, and also the highlighting the fact that the reduction of the duty for the lentils, which is very timely, as in fact, we have a flashing news this afternoon. And so that's very, very encouraging news. Thank you for sharing that. And Peter Kreeser is always, we are very delighted to hear from you the very good developments in terms of biosecurity and collaboration in terms of technical market access for all the good job what you've already done for pomegranates, which is a success story. And now we are waiting for barley. And so I'm sure that the barley is, your program is, I learned that it is completed, and we would like to move forward on that. Thank you so much for highlighting that and also highlighting the other projects which are happening. And Cameron Colbeach, and what you have highlighted today is the whole supply chain is from table to fork. It's not only just the food, but the whole supply chain. That's a very important aspect what you highlighted, and also the cost of the, the financial cost of the wastage, and the excellent program which the government of Australia has initiated, the National Food Waste Strategy, and the voluntary program, which I feel that it is also going to be beneficial as a role model to even India in terms of partnership for such programs. Thank you so much, Cam, for that. And Tony Smith, and you have presented an eco-friendly system. And again, that's something which is very unique to the food processing. And it's very important in this, especially in the COVID environment. Thank you so much, Tony. And Len, and you have been a technology guru in terms of bringing out this aspect, innovation aspects as presented by, as also highlighted by Jim, and especially the water-based solutions and the non-toxic packaging, which is quite exciting technologies. And that's why from a Make in India point of view, it makes it a little bit selfish to encourage you to participate in the Indian market, and Australia-India Business Council will be partnering with you for such projects. Thank you very much, Len, and also for sponsoring Len and Tony for coming out as our sponsors for this webinar. We really appreciate your gesture in this, and we'd like to continue to partner with you. Anupam, and this has been excellent presentation from you in terms of the Indian government, the reforms what they have done, and also projecting the Indian scenario as an enabling scenario, and in the market it's a production, it's a market to supply rather than a market to consumption, and India is the right place. That's what you have said, and thank you very much for participation, Anupam Ghosh, in a very short notice. And Kaushik, Kamlesh Thakur, and you have highlighted in a very, very short time frame, you have brought out the entire supply chain scenario in front of us, which is also highlighting the biosecurity, cold chain, the business intelligence, and the product flow, the timing of it. I mean, this is right now, the timing is also important. So we appreciate your participation at a short notice, Kamlesh, and we really look forward to working with you on many of these supply chain solutions. And last but not least, I would like to thank all our participants of this seminar and our partners and who are with us, and also the back office support by Silvana Livisianis, Vishal Kumar, and Wendy Farrell, who has been always behind us in ensuring the success of all the webinars right from the day one. They've been tirelessly working almost 10 to 12 hours a day and ensuring all our webinars are great success. And I really appreciate being privileged to do the word of thanks because it's such eminent speakers. It gives us a great feeling under the leadership of Jim Varghese. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vish. And on that very comprehensive vote of thanks, I herewith close this webinar. We've finished exactly on time. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks,
you.
Jim. Namaste.